stocks are down 66 points. The NASDAQ is down 24. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
This is not America. Little piece of you.
Hello and welcome back. Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Green, are here to try to light up the airwaves today.
We do it so well.
And
Wait. Who's Leland Green?
Yeah.
Oh, Leland Faegre. Oh, gosh. I keep hoping that Jennifer Green will be able to return to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. We're supposed to.
Okay. So there's a lot to talk about today. Of course, the weather here has turned nasty again, but how was it up in the lake?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. There was at least 4, maybe 5 inches overnight.
Oh, yeah?
And I think since we did the last show, we've had about a foot up there. So, accumulation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't see it. It's at this time of the year, the convectional heating heats it up and it's gone, but it's really nice.
Well, it's that global warming again.
It really is. Please call the show.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about, in case you saw it, but the Buttigieg, as Trump calls him, or Alfred E. Newman. Buttigieg.
As Trump describes it. Buttigieg.
Had his 60 Minutes of Fame on Fox.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
Did you watch it all?
I did.
You really?
Yeah, I taped it even for
How do
future
you sit
reference.
through? Oh, okay. All right. So research then.
Yeah, research.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm always researching. But anyway, he did impress me superficially in the fact that he's pretty articulate and he can make subtle distinctions that a lot of candidates are not capable of making.
So you're saying he articulates socialism really well?
Yes, he does.
I guess that really wows them, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially over on Fox.
Yeah, it was the biggest audience for any of their Democratic town halls so far.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there was wild cheering at the end when he said he was in favor of absolutely, it's the woman's choice in abortion.
Wild cheering, you described it?
Yeah, I mean, for a political show, they were standing up and applauding and, I don't know if they were whistling, but they were applauding.
So were they for the infanticide that they're all excited about?
Yes, of course they are, yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's a hard one to come to terms with, isn't it? And especially, charging me for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm pro-choice with reservations, but when you're forcing people to pay for it, using taxes to fund Planned Parenthood,
which is one of Jefferson's definitions of tyranny.
Exactly.
Your money being used against what you prefer that money to be used for.
Yep. But then the Republicans counter with wanting to spend tax money on the pregnancy crisis centers, which is, just the opposite view. But, again, instead of getting the tax dollars out of it completely, but that would be a bridge too far for most people.
So you're saying by funding these things, you end up getting more of it? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, yes, exactly.
Huh.
When you subsidize something, no matter what it is, you tend to get more of it.
More of it, huh?
Yeah, so we've been subsidizing government for a long time, and we keep getting more of it.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's why we do the show, huh?
So he is Obama-like, I think. He is trying to be the intellectual, soft-spoken commie on the stage, and it was very interesting to see that. And
his father was a communist.
Well, that's what we're going to get into. Yes, father was definitely a communist.
Did I mention that too early?
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, we're going to get back to it soon.
All right.
One thing he is a combat veteran, and He was for the Afghanistan war, but then he's saying now that we should have gotten out sooner, and he's repeating John Kerry's line that nobody wants to be the last one to die in a failed war.
It's so easy to say that after the fact,
I know,
isn't it?
exactly.
I mean, honestly.
I know. So I don't know whether to trust the guy, really, in any future involvements, but... I'd much rather. I do have trust in Tulsi because she's walked the walk, I think, more than he has.
Yeah, and she's quite articulate and upfront about it.
Okay. Leah, let's get into his father. His father taught Marxism at the university, and the interesting thing is that what kind of Marxism did he actually teach? And what he actually taught was not the ownership of the means of production type Marxism, but he taught what's called by a lot of people cultural Marxism. Mm-hmm. And that's totally different. And well, not totally different, but somewhat different.
Well, it's perfect for the millennials.
Yes, it is. The fact is that even after, Lenin, when he came back, one of the good things was he wanted to do is get Russia out of the war, or at least, on the surface it's good. But the communists were shocked that all the socialist governments who were anti-war in Europe instead joined up in the war effort with their respective states in World War I. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't understand that. And then also the fact that a lot of the Russian people didn't embrace their new ideology.
Didn't quite work out the way they expected.
Yeah, they actually had to force people to do things and murder them if they didn't. So,
well, we laugh about it now. It wasn't funny at the time.
No, it certainly wasn't. So from that era, you got what is called cultural Marxism, where the new analysis, the new theme of Marxism was going to be, instead of seizing the means of production, which the workers of the West have too much invested in to seize, it's to destroy the culture, primarily the Christian culture that has been around for 2,000 years. And that has been their purpose. And
I think it's working well.
Yeah. So far, it seems to be working quite well.
Working like a charm.
Yeah. And through the destruction of the culture, they would enable the creation of the new man that they want to create, which would be...
Which man is that, by the way?
Well, the new man, of course, today they would have to say the new gender unspecific person.
That's right. Yeah. Because there could be women.
Yeah.
Women out there
would outgrow the need for states, boundaries, and private property. He would be the new socialist man.
Odd. Or woman.
Or woman.
Is it a woman?
Or whatever.
Yeah. Well, anyway, don't go away, whatever you are.
It's your worldwide invite to Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen. Perfection tri-tip, ribbed.
You're invited to join Business Connections with Anita every Wednesday from 10 to 11 a.m. here on 1180 a.m. KCKQ America Matters.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm Brendan Trainor, and with Leland Faegre, our co-host.
Not to be confused with
Jennifer Green.
Jennifer Green.
Yep. So, Leland, so we were talking a little bit about what is cultural Marxism that Buttigieg's... Yeah, Buttigieg. His father taught in college, and... So I think his father specialized in Antonio Gramsci, who was one of the leading lights of cultural Marxism. Some of us from the 60s might remember Herbert Marcuse, who was thought was very popular in the schools then, and I suppose it's pretty popular today.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. So they formed what's called the School of Social Research, and it's sometimes called the Frankfurt School because that's where it originally was in the early 1920s, to promote their ideas. And, of course, the Nazis came to power, and so they fled, and they went to Geneva for a while, and then they came to New York City. and where it's called the New School of Social Research in New York City.
Put a little new on the front of it.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
So what people have described it is, when Mao Zedong was fighting his revolution, he had this famous Long March, which was a military feat that ranks up there with Hannibal's
Yes, it does.
and all those.
Enormous event.
Yes. So, but what they call cultural Marxism is the long march through the institutions.
That seems to be working well as well.
Yeah. So they're designed to break up, first of all, monogamy, Christian monogamy, patriarchy, by going through the arts, cinema, theater, schools, colleges, seminaries, newspapers, magazines, and radio, and of course now the internet. Each one of these media had to be captured and converted and politicized into an agency of revolution.
Well, I hope they're taking notes out there, because this is really instructive stuff.
Yeah, it is. So then the people would be slowly educated to understand and even welcome the revolution. So there was, a lot of people don't know it, but in 1919 there was actually a communist regime that grew up in Hungary, but the Hungarians had the good sense to get rid of it after less than a year. But they also promoted the idea. And so the what a Christian blogger I know, I read sometimes, Rod Dreher, who writes over at the American Conservative, also calls it the law of merited impossibility, which means the more that we give, when the accession of gay rights, transgender rights, and so on, that the liberals are going to say there's absolutely no
enough
truth to the fact that we're going to come after you, the traditional Christians. But when we do, you're going to totally deserve it.
And you're going to love it.
Yes, you're going to love it. So, and I am not against gay rights. I'm not against transgenders. What I am worried about and concerned about is the imposition of their ideology on everybody else.
Yeah.
Like Jordan Peterson, for example, is a hero among the right because he refused, when he was teaching, I think it was in Toronto, to acknowledge all these different pronouns and so on. And he was expelled from the school, and we're seeing it all over the place. With teachers and scientists even. That's one of the things that, because these ideas are not only being tolerated and expressed, but they're being fetishized.
Financially supported.
Yeah, financially supported and fetishized, so that, we have now a major political party that is almost totally invested in identity politics, and that comes from cultural Marxism.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it really is sort of the springboard from which everything has developed in our lifetime.
Yes. Yeah, I know. And it's, so, again, so that what Mr. Buttigieg is saying, it sounds moderate, but in the end, he's going to be probably very much like his father and continue to espouse these ideas. And again, if you're talking about tolerance, and if you're talking about allowing things like gay unions, whether you call it marriage, or I stood up mostly for the idea of the civil unions.
Do you think it really comes across as tolerant, the way he presented itself? Because I didn't see the program. I couldn't watch it. His Fox appearance, I mean.
Yeah, he tries to cut it. He tries to say that there are boundaries, I think. He didn't use the word, but he's trying to promote the idea that he can be what he is, and he would respect the boundaries of other people. The very fact that he went on Fox is one example. I mean, some of the Democrats won't even appear on Fox.
I think they're all going to appear now.
Yeah, probably.
Beto is apparently
he's
negotiating to come back on, or
all right.
to be on, yeah.
So he's
But
willing.
what I'm saying, I guess what I'm looking to, because I didn't see it again, and all I've been able to see on the media is that he articulates well, but it's still the same old rubbish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure how that really passes the smell test with people, unless they're halfway there anyway.
Well, like Joe Biden said, Obama is clean and articulate.
Yeah, right.
He's one of the good ones.
Biden said that.
Yeah. Obama's one of the good ones, and that's what he's trying to be, one of the good ones.
I see. Okay.
I think.
All right.
That's That's why I called him a Macron that's out of the closet. I mean,
see.
he's a cosmopolitan globalist at heart, but he's trying literally out of the closet because Macron is suspected to be gay in the closet by a lot of people, but he is out of the closet, and also but he may very well be in the closet ideologically.
Does that explain his older wife then?
Well, it explains his older wife, but also his fetish for gays. He's been photographed with very in extreme bodily contact with half-naked black in particular. He seems to like black gays.
I remember hearing that when in the last French election. I never saw any images of it, but yeah, there was some discussion of that.
Yeah, and so
Macron.
Yeah. But at any rate, I'm not just casting aspersions. I don't care what your sexual orientation is, as long as if you come into power, if you are achieving power, you're for everybody, and you're not going to use that power against traditionalists. We have to find a way to have the same kind of space and allow the same kind of dialogue and freedom of expression, but cultural Marxism is all about PC. It's all about political correctness. It's all about intolerance posing as tolerance.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. I'll just be over here if you need me.
Oh, no. I mean, that is true. I mean, Marcuse even said things out front about that in the 60s, that we can't allow this kind of dialogue. The restoration of freedom of thought. So it's the restoration of freedom of thought, according to Marcuse. But that freedom of thought may necessitate new and rigid restrictions on teachings and practices.
So much for freedom of thought.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how they operate, folks.
Yeah, this is.
And you're seeing it in real time as
yes, exactly. And so, if it's hate speech, it's you can ban it because it actually does, speech in and of itself actually does inflict trauma and pain on people.
On people.
Yeah, so you have to keep...
People that you don't even know.
Right, yeah. So you have to have safe spaces and everything else that we're seeing. And Antifa, it's okay to go up to someone who's... on the alt-right, like Richard Springer, and just cold cock him, or that young graduate student that was attacked recently in a school in Michigan. In fact, most of the violence that we're seeing...
That's because he was too tolerant.
Yes, he was too tolerant, and he was exercising a freedom of expression that was actually necessitated that he stopped expressing himself.
I see. I should be taking notes here because I'm kind of confused on this stuff as well. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Do we have fun here on Talking Truth to Power or what?
All right. So at any rate, we have to keep an eye on Mayor Pete and see Buttigieg and see where he goes, if anywhere. The fact,
he's not going anywhere.
He's going somewhere. I mean,
he'll just be an advocate or a protagonist for the whoever eventually gets the nomination. Gets to the nomination, yeah.
All right. Well, we can cross him off the list then.
Yeah.
But he will go somewhere, and he will be expressing himself. And while he's saying that others, subtly hinting that others should not be expressing themselves, so we'll see where all this goes. And when I guess the main thing is, though, is that people are becoming more aware of these liberation ideas and facts, and
liberation in quotes.
Liberation in quotes. Yeah, that's what Mark Coase was. His one of his primary writings is Essay on Liberation.
Essay.
That was Herbert Marcuse's essay on liberation. So,
a written work essay.
Yeah, that's a written work. Yeah,
I was visualizing the letters. Essay.
Yeah. So relaxation of taboos, cultural subversion, critical theory. That's another one we didn't talk about. Critical theory is like Mao's what do you call it? Or what Mao did in China. You continually criticize.
The Cultural Revolution.
Cultural Revolution. You continually criticize.
It's an evolving.
Cross-criticize, yes. And it's the dialect. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said that Marxism at its core is not so much about the means of production, but it's about material change and the material dialectic, that everything is always changing and everything is materialistic and there's no inherent truth.
That's right. That's critical to Marxism.
Yes, it is. And that's what we hope that Trump and others will stand up to and expose in the coming years. Maybe we'll get a change in this situation.
Yep. Well, we got to get through these next 2 years first.
Yes.
So, and in the next segment, what are we going to talk about?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll figure it out during the break.
All right. We'll let our sponsors identify themselves.
Virginia City is the source of all the richness in the West. While today it brings us a summer of fun with camel races, cook-offs, street vibrations, outhouse races, parades, and many more events, it's never dull.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. And I am Brendan Trainor, and along here with Leland Faegre, and it's time to give a shout out to our sponsor, Reno Computer Services. Reno Computer Services are Reno's premier computer repair, malware removal, and data recovery service. They offer a full range of routine maintenance, virus and malware removal, data recovery, and a preventive approach that delivers reliable, consistent, and secure PC performance. Call them now at 775-737-4400 or on the web at www.renocomputerservices.com. So we were talking about the attack on culture and civilization, but there's also an attack on law and science that we're seeing in the recent years.
It's cultural revolution.
Yeah, it's part of the whole thing. And so there's what we have is a recently in the news, of course, the extradition of Julian Assange and the fact that he is thrown into a high security prison for what was a bail jumping charge.
He's a very dangerous person.
I know. A bail jumping charge that arose from a scandal in Sweden. And Paul Craig Roberts has been analyzing it, and I have heard stories that it was a honeypot deal, that Assange's enemies were out to get him in Sweden.
I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, well, it's possible that it was a little bit less of a situation as far as that it could be that these were just fans of his, more or less political groupies, two women. And they both wanted to have sex with him, and one woman was shocked that he didn't use a condom, and she went to the police, but only to ask them if to make him submit to an STD test, so she could be assured that there was no problem. And unfortunately, this whole thing got into the hands of what, as we call in America, an overzealous prosecutor. And technically, if you don't use a condom...
You like Mueller?
Yeah. If you don't use a condom in Sweden, that can be charged as rape, depending on the circumstances. So Assange, he was afraid they were going to accuse him of rape and so on, and so he fled and he took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy, eventually in England, and the woman herself dropped the charges. She says that she only wanted him to undergo the test. She didn't want him to be charged with anything else. And he was interviewed a couple of times by the Swedes, and each time they dropped the case. And now suddenly that he's been sent to England and by the Ecuadorian embassy. Oh, by the way, the embassy turned over all his property to the government, to the feds. So that is in itself a violation of the rules of asylum, and another reason to be down on Ecuador, their Ecuadorian government anyway. So the thing is, one of the interesting things is, Assange is afraid that he will be extradited to America, and not so much even for this trumped-up charge that he engaged in cyber. He helped Chelsea Manning to get into to hack, which is really kind of flimsy, and it boils down to whether or not he was just trying to protect his source, because any information he gave Manning was unnecessary. Manning already knew how to do it. He was just trying to help him cover his trail a little bit.
Talking about Seth Rich.
Yeah. And so is Sweden trying to extradite him to turn him over to the U.S., or is Sweden suddenly on the side of the angels and they want to extradite him to keep him?
To save him.
Yeah, to save him from being extradited to the U.S. So that's one of the questions we have to see work out. But the rule of law here is really, again, being subverted by a judge. Judge Anthony Trenga is the...
Sounds like a Swedish surname.
Yeah, but actually, Judge Trenga was the one that's been involved with Chelsea Manning. And now, whatever you want to say, one of the criticisms of transgenders is that they're just totally self-absorbed, and it's all about their transition, it's all about me. But in this case, we have a real hero in Chelsea Manning that is actually put into contempt of court, put into jail, released for a short period of time, and is now back in jail again. And also, if she doesn't comply with the demands, to be fined, heavily fined after a period of time, $100 a day, and then that'll escalate to $500 a day or something. It's and these contempt charges in this situation, or $1,000 a day after 60 days.
They're meant to harass.
Yeah, they're meant to harass. It's $500 a day, rising to $1,000 a day after 60 days. So this is...
There's just no reward in telling the truth, is there?
No. He says he already testified, sort of like Donald Trump Jr. And, I've already testified.
Been there and done that.
Yeah.
Now what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. And she is not going to give them anything that they can use against Assange to expand the charges and make them even worse.
Yeah.
Including the possibility if they could charge him with espionage, he could be sent away with indefinite detention and never even get a trial. That's one of the reasons why he's so very concerned. Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to...
Nothing worse than that.
No, there isn't.
There really isn't.
So
much for habeas corpus, huh?
Exactly. I mean, the Supreme Court said even during the Civil War...
Not that mattered to Lincoln.
No, not that it mattered to Lincoln. Well, they made their ruling, now let them enforce it.
Is that what we're going to talk about in the next segment?
So we have the decline of the rule of law, the corruption of law for political purposes, and we have it also with the case of the Russian woman Butima, who is accused of trying to infiltrate the NRA to steal secrets and send them to Putin.
Can't make that one up.
No. And, again, this Foreign Agency Act, where you're supposed to register as an agent of the federal government, except nearly everybody in Washington.
Not a soul has ever done it.
No, nobody has ever done that.
Nope.
And especially the people for governments that we like AIPAC, which has never been forced to register. The big Jewish lobbies for Israel have never been forced to register like that.
The American-Israeli Political Action Committee.
Yes, that's right. So we have this situation with her. Now, she actually cut a video for the Russian version of Facebook, in which she appeared for the first time, and she was going to endure her extra 9 months, but now apparently her lawyers are decided to try to appeal.
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe, yeah. It was a GoFundMe effort.
Yeah.
And she is a very nice-looking young lady, in my opinion, a very represented young lady.
Yeah, but she likes guns.
I know, and she's a Becky.
And she's Russian.
Yes, I mean, there's a certain place in hell for people like her.
You can't tolerate anything like that.
No, of course not. So, the rule of law is collapsing, and also the rule of science. We're talking about the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons, and they're ruling on the so-called chemical attacks by that evil dictator Assad in Syria has suffered a blow because their mealy-mouthed interpretation. First of all, they had no chain of custody. They relied totally on the white helmets and other jihadi groups for any kind of evidence that they collected, and so they had no real evidence to present. And somebody in their organization with some integrity leaked a report recently that in the Duma case, the second one of the alleged Assad used chemical weapons against his own people case, there were canisters that were photographed, gas canisters in buildings, and they were told that these canisters were dropped from helicopters and they crashed through the roof. And this person managed to leak a study, unknown leaker, that showed that in fact there is no evidence that they fell through a roof, that everything that they've seen indicates that it was manually placed there.
It's a staged event.
A staged event. Yeah. A false flag.
Which makes a lot more sense, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't in his interest.
Right.
There's no logic to it. It's counterintuitive to assume that he staged such an event.
Well, I just heard a congressman saying now, Russia is on the verge, Russia and Syria are on the verge of taking the last area around Aleppo. How
many times have they done that now?
Yeah, well, they allow, it's one area around Aleppo, but it's mostly in what's called Idlib province where they are.
Right.
So the jihadis there are surrounded, and they're trying to negotiate surrender with these Syrian and Russian forces, and come to behold, somebody told Congress that Assad was using chemical weapons again.
Somebody
right on the verge of victory. Let's
seize defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, is that some sort of a CIA holdout on the ground there? You're not suggesting the CIA is still in the theater, are you?
Oh, well, gosh.
Is there a chance that they could actually still be in the theater?
Well, maybe we'll find out after the break.
Wow, you look fantastic. Where did you get that perfect tan?
Oh, thank you. Element Tanning Studio. They're new and family owned. They really care.
Hey, lady! What's for lunch today? Out to lunch. Mondays at noon. 1180 KCKQ. A production of America Matters Media.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back, Talking Truth to Power. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre. And we were talking a little bit about how we're trying, again, the propaganda machine in Washington against the resistance.
There's a propaganda machine up there?
Yeah, I think so.
Huh.
Yeah, it's cranking out all kinds of bells, whistles, and smoke, but it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere.
It's all about the theater.
Yeah. And then, so we last week, Pompeo did a whirlwind tour of Europe and Russia and Iraq. And although he tried to look like he was in control, in fact, a lot of people are saying he was running around like a wet hen.
They were winging it, weren't they?
Yes.
I mean, he was supposed to visit Putin, and then just inexplicably shows up in Baghdad instead. Yeah, it looked like they were just calling wherever the wind blew them is where they ended up.
I understand Iraq is buying some of those dreaded S-400 anti-aircraft,
Those
Russian anti-aircraft system.
Medium range, those?
No, the ones that prevent the anti.
Oh, anti.
Yeah, defense system.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because the Patriot system really doesn't work as well, and so of course that would infuriate our people in Washington, and so he was over there talking to them. And there's rumors again, but these rumors have been going around for years that Iraq is getting ready to expel us from our big, beautiful base over there.
Yeah, it turned out well for us, didn't it? It was
Yes.
magnificent.
And so, but when he
That has to be the most stupid of any decision in the history of the Republic.
what
Iraq.
the Iraq War, you mean?
Yeah, I've just.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Just on its face, it's the most stupid thing ever.
Yeah, it was George Bush's strategery.
Because, all that terrorism in Iraq, wasn't a soul.
Yes.
No, it wasn't an element of Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
Right.
We would have been better off going into Mexico.
Exactly. So when Pompeo showed up to talk to Western European leaders who were having a security conference, they said, well, he's always welcome, but frankly, we don't have much time to discuss anything right now.
Yeah, sure. Well, Iraq is an Iranian dependent. It's effectively a satellite of Iran, so it fits.
Okay.
I don't know if the military that engaged understood that they were actually implementing an Islamic regime while they were there, but that's what they did.
Exactly. I don't know either. And Iraq tries to be the only country over there that tries to be both a friend of America and Iran. And you're saying they're completely under Iran's sway. There is a nationalist sentiment in Iraq.
And we replaced a secular regime.
Oh yes, we did.
That tolerated all religious forms. I mean, he was a brute, but he was our brute.
Yeah.
And we should have minded our own goddamn business.
Exactly. Yeah, and we engineer things, and then when people respond to the things we engineer, we blame them for what they did rather than look at what we did initially. But but when he got to Sochi, which is the where the Russians had the Summer Olympics in southern Russia near the Black Sea, the Mediterranean actually. When he got there. I read that first he talked to Lavrov, and one of the quotes I heard from the meeting was that Lavrov asked him if he represented the West, North America, and he said, "I represent the whole hemisphere." And Putin said, "Oh, and do you also represent the Ukraine and our hemisphere?"